I was out walking the other day and I discovered proof that God exists. Would you like to see proof that God exists? I think it's an important point because most people actually believe that God exists. About 95% of people on planet Earth believe that God exists, but most of us have doubt. And I think one of the things that atheists and Christians ought to come clean about is that we have doubts about this. One of the things I appreciate about John Ortberg's book No Doubt, is that he starts the book by talking about the fact that I have doubt. He says, I have bet the farm in my belief in Christianity and in the Christian view of God, but I have doubts at times. C.S. Lewis said, I sometimes have doubt. And he said, the truth is, when I was when I was a non-Christian, I doubted my atheism. And now that I am a Christian, I sometimes doubt my Christianity. And I think two things are true of nearly all people. Nearly all people believe in God, but nearly all people doubt their belief in God. And so I want to show you some proof that I discovered about the existence of God. Would you like to see it? Well, here's a little picture. And this may not look like much, but it's my attempt to communicate something, and that is that complexity suggests intelligence. Complexity suggests intelligence. Because when I saw that little square, those little rocks up there out in the desert, shaped in a square, I did not say to myself, what an amazing act of chance and time and wind and rain and snow that blew these rocks into a square. No, when I looked at that square, I said to myself, that in fact looks like something that intelligence. And just to come clean with you, I saw a very similar square to this, and I went out looking for it again to make this point. I couldn't find it. So this actual little square itself, I can guarantee you was created by intelligence because I created it. I pushed those little rocks into a square, but the point is, and this is a point been made by people far smarter than me for a long time. The old illustration goes like this. If you find a watch in the jungle, what you know is that a watchmaker exists. But here's what I want to point out. The bar of knowing that intelligence created that design is not very high. In other words, something does not have to be very complex to make me think, there's intelligence behind that. I did the funeral of a man a few years ago, Charles Francoise. And at his funeral, I showed this little picture. He used to like to go out into the hills and look for Indian artifacts and so on. I've got a picture of him and his dad here. Charles is actually the young man in the picture. And he found this pot. And I raised the question at his funeral. I said, what do you think are the odds that Charles looked at that pot and said, what an amazing result of time and chance and wind and rain and so on that created this order. And the point is, when you see order, when you see complexity, you think to yourself, there must be intelligence behind this. And when I look at nature, one of the things I often look at, I've got a hummingbird feeder outside of my window where I sit and do my work each day. And oftentimes I'll look at those little hummingbirds and I say to myself, no amount of time plus chance and a process of random evolution could have created that level of design. And from what I've read, the more scientists look at it, the more they discover that there is an incredible complexity in our universe. Either at the molecular level or at the cosmic level, there is incredible complexity in our universe. If this isn't enough to convince you, I would invite you to consider taking a couple of steps. First step is I would invite you to join me in reading the book, Why I Believe by Chip Ingram. Why I Believe by Chip Ingram. One of the things I like about this book, like many of Lee Strobel's books, by the way, is Chip Ingram didn't grow up in a Christian home. And so a lot of us, myself included, simply grew up, at the end of the day, we grew up concluding what our parents had taught us. But that's not true of Chip Ingram. He grew up in a non-Christian home, and he came to faith in Christ as a believer. And he tells some of his story here, and he tells why he came to believe. That's why it's entitled that. It's why he personally came to believe, came from being a non-believer to being a believer. And if you still doubt, I would encourage you to explore the evidence. Explore the evidence. I love the title of another book on this topic called Why I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. Why I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an atheist. Because the point I want to say is there's plenty of evidence out there. And another thing I'd like to invite you to consider, I've just written a Bible study on this book. And I'd invite you to get 6 or 8 of your friends together in a living room, or maybe you're already a part of a group, a Sunday school class at a church, or a small group that's sponsored by your church. I would invite you to go through this book, and each one get you a copy and read through it. And then I've got a Bible study you can get either on Amazon in both Kindle and print version, or you can go to my Bible study, my site, myBibleStudyLessons.com. And for a subscription basis, you can take a look at that. But go through that book and ask. Each of these lessons will consist of about 20 ready-to-use questions. I like to say, if you can ask 20 questions, you can lead a Bible study group. And then I provide answers from many of these other books, John Ortberg's books, and some of these others that I've quoted, so that you, the teacher, will have some additional information to share with your group. But I think this is an issue that a lot of us struggle with, and so I would encourage you to read the book and then gather some friends together to discuss this all-important topic. And may God richly bless you as you do.